Most welcome to Historiesbanorna History Reconnaissance and the American Railroads in World War II. World War II saw spectacularly increased demand on the American railroads. During the war, they carried 43 million members of the armed forces in 114,000 special troop trains. The war years proved to be the zenith of public rail transportation in the United States. More people and materials than ever before had to travel, and nearly everything moved by rail. Compared to 1940, the freight volume had nearly doubled by 1944, and the passenger miles even more. And more than 75% of all commercial passengers traveled by rail, as did an astonishing 97% of military passengers. More than 4,000 locomotives were built for domestic use during the war. The most memorable year was 1944, with the last and best examples of several iconic steam locomotives, such as the Union Pacific Big Boys and Challengers, and Southern Pacific's Cab Forwards. So, follow us on these American rails and see the logistical wonder that fueled the US war machine and kept soldiers, weapons and supplies flowing to the production plants, to the airfields and harbors, helping to secure the final victory. And please, subscribe to our channel and join us on our continuing journey in history.
The Jap bombers came over Honolulu in successive waves. Tons of demolition and incendiary bombs were loosed on airfields and harbor installations. There is little doubt but that Congress will be called into extraordinary session to declare a state of war to exist between the United States.
Confronted with the most critical undertaking in her history, the nation looked to her transportation, to her railroads for assurance of stamina, ability, and readiness. How far the flood tide of aggression would penetrate depended on the speed with which the strength of the nation could be mobilized. Fully cognizant of their tremendous responsibility, utilizing every available car, every piece of equipment, troop and supply trains, destinations obscured by rigid rules of military security, were diverted for immediate activation of trained fighting units. This was no rehearsal, no practice maneuver. This was the real thing. This was war. Benefiting from a century of hard-earned experience, men and machines representing every branch of military service were loaded with flawless efficiency. Then, with the precision of a well-rehearsed miracle, the nation's railroads were started rolling. And even before Congress could gather to declare a formal state of war to exist, the armed might of these free and indivisible United States was already gathering momentum. Rail equipment was backed onto sidings, awaiting only the signal from inspecting officers to receive their urgent cargoes, to get started rolling in the greatest mass movement of troops and equipment in the history of this or any nation. Flat car after flat car, loaded with speed and precision. Utility cars, scout cars, heavy trucks, tanks, jeeps, peeps, tank destroyers. Hundreds of fighting vehicles rumbling endlessly. Countless tons of steel and firepower rolling aboard and into riding position. There to be blocked and nailed and wired and secured by hands which had long trained for this very day. Then came division after division, thousands upon thousands of hardened, well-trained, superbly equipped fighting men to pile quickly aboard comfortable Pullman cars, their ultimate destination, a closely guarded military secret. Not a second was lost. From caboose to head end, get 'em rolling. And within a matter of hours from receipt of the initial order, hundreds of trains loaded with the world's finest soldiers, sailors, and Marines were started moving to embarkation points to take their stand, our stand, against the aggressors. pounding relentlessly over never-ending steel-paved highways, here was a spectacle of unity and action to give dictators nightmares. Here was unqualified assurance that the American railroads would meet every demand of the grim struggle to which they and the nation were irrevocably committed. Into embarkation areas, on schedules meticulously planned to avoid congestion, poured weapons, munitions, men, and supplies. Countless trainloads of every conceivable component of logistical planning to be stowed aboard waiting transports without delay to any convoy. The might of the mightiest of nations was gathering momentum. By moving men and materiel with unprecedented speed and efficiency, just as surely the American railroads were contributing to that momentum. Soon, decisive battles would be fought on far-flung invasion fronts. On the home front, the battle of transportation had already begun. Modern war is waged with steel. From mines far removed, iron ore, indispensable ingredient of steel, depends upon rail transport to initiate the heavy movements to distant reduction plants. Each trainload, a veritable mountain of embryonic striking power, the rich ore is delivered to especially constructed docks, there to be dumped into enormous lake carriers, which share the weight of wartime commitments. This coordination of lake and land transport is of incalculable importance in maintaining deliveries commensurate with every production requirement. Equally as important in the achievement of industrial supremacy is coal. In war or in peace, the leading commodity handled by the railroads. In volumes to stagger the imagination, the movement is endless, a veritable conveyor belt leading directly into the nation's homes, into America's teeming industrial plants. Then, as though geared together under the stimulus of total war, the timely juncture of every rail-transported essential melds with the skill of American industry to culminate in fiery rivers of molten power. Transporting only a small percentage of Eastern oil requirements before the outbreak of hostilities, the railroads were called upon to perform another transportation miracle, the movement of up to 100 times their normal daily volume. So, with typical American adaptability, they became a moving pipeline from fields to shortage areas, to ocean terminals, for transshipment to fighting fronts. Would the American railroads meet the strain of wartime traffic without delay or confusion? Railroad men know their jobs. They know those jobs well. In the first months of this globe-encircling conflict, they moved more men and more equipment, and with greater speed and efficiency than during the entire span of World War I.
Sure, we're building ships. We're building plenty of them. But we're not building them by ourselves. There isn't a steel mill within hundreds of miles of here, but we're building those ships out of steel. There isn't a forest within 1,000 miles of here, but we're getting the lumber to build our ships. From stem to stern, almost every part has to be brought in. Without the railroads, there wouldn't be any ships. They're building them just as much as we are. Take it from me, those guys are doing a great job.
Unlike World War I, when transportation all but broke down due to unloading bottlenecks at terminals, this war finds such occurrences practically non-existent.
In Washington, the freight car movements on every railroad are closely checked through information received by the Association of American Railroads. Should a particular terminal have too many unloaded cars on hand, immediate investigation determines whether further movements to that location should be temporarily discontinued.
Yeah, I know. But if I don't keep that stuff in those cars, I won't have room in my warehouse for some important stuff that's coming in.
I'm sorry. You'll have to get your freight unloaded and release these cars if you don't want an embargo invoked against you.
By adhering to reasonable time limits on loadings and unloadings, shippers and receivers are playing their vital part in this crucial battle of transportation, are supplying the railroads with literally thousands of additional cars to keep them rolling. Contributing heavily toward creating the greatest pool of carrying capacity ever conceived is one of the commonplaces of American commerce, the fact that the cars of any railroad move unrestricted over the rails of all other lines. The next time you see a freight train, look closely. You'll count almost as many different trademarks as you will cars. Relieving the necessity of transferring cargoes at the terminus of each individual railroad, this cooperative policy among the operating companies has long been an important factor in keeping war freights moving, in making ton-mile freight charges in the United States the lowest of any country in the world. Reflecting abiding faith in the perpetuation of the fundamentals of democracy, at war and at peace, the railroads will ever remain an exemplification of the power, the permanent strength of those principles. Today, they are confronted with the gravest responsibility in the annals of transportation. The struggle may be long, the demands increasingly ponderous, but with confidence in the future and the future beyond, the American railroads are keeping them rolling. Unwearying in their efforts, unfaltering in their trust, they are the lifelines of the nation.
That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.